Hey there guys, what's up? This is Serbian Vigilant of Jesus Christ speaking, and welcome to my first ever personal presentation of myself here on YouTube. Yes, that is correct. And the reason why I've decided to do this today is because I'm going to discuss a very important topic that is pretty important to me on a very personal and spiritual level, but also because the reason why I have chosen this path and why this has happened kind of all of a sudden actually is due to some circumstances and due to some realizations and me realizing certain things. And I feel it is important that I share this with a larger audience, so to speak. And before I actually start, I want to apologize in advance if my English sounds a little bit rusty, and in case that I get to stutter throughout my speech, because I have actually not spoken English like this for quite a long time actually, and despite the fact that I have also recently finished my college education as a linguist, where I finished both Spanish and English. Um, well, basically, I I haven't actually made that many oral presentations, and this feels a little bit like that. So I apologize if I get to stutter a little bit along the way, but I'm sure you will be able to understand it. Furthermore, what I should also say, the reason why I'm doing this in English actually is because not only am I going to appeal to some of my fellow countrymen who I believe do understand English pretty well, but because I feel the necessity to also appeal to some people who are non-Serbian speakers. So basically saying those who are not speaking my native tongue, they would probably also need to hear what I have to say. But I am sure that everyone will get at least a decent understanding of what I will say here, and at least I hope that they will consider some of my words and, well, basically at least take it into considerations and to heart, and then see what they will think about it after a while. But anyway, what I'm going to discuss is how I became and how I came to be a born again Christian. And like I said, keep that term in mind because this is very important. So anyway, folks, I'm not using any advanced equipment for this, so I hope that you can hear me fine. And well, without further delay, let's just begin. Now guys, for you to understand where I'm coming from with all of this and how I actually came to be a born again Christian, I think I need to give you well, some sort of insight or background story about who I am and what I was before reaching this point in my life and my spiritual life, to be more precise. Um, I think that it will give you some better visual image about how I actually reached this point, because I have been pursuing, a few directions along the way, in my pursuit of faith, and I've been following different paths and directions, and reading a lot of stuff, a lot of different stuff, and ultimately this is where I am today because of the pursuit for the truth. And that is something that's very important to me. So I think it's kind of important for me to share that with you. I'm going to try to make that as short and as simple as possible for you guys, because I don't really want to bore you with all this stuff, and you're probably not that much interested in it, but at least I will give you some key elements from my past, which does have an influence on this right now. So anyway, what was I before all this? Well, to start with, I was raised as a Serbian Orthodox Christian. Now, the reason why I say Serbian Orthodox Christian is because it is somewhat different from a regular Orthodox Christian. And the reason why I say that is because in my in my homeland of Serbia, which you can probably already imagine where I come from, the main and major religion in that country is Orthodox Christianity, or Eastern Orthodox Christianity. And the reason why I say Serbian is because the the way my people celebrate Christian traditions, or at least they think they do, is because Serbs have never actually truly given up on their pre-Christian traditions, so to speak, because my people has actually first adopted Christianity back in the late 9th century. And before that, my people were following the pre-Christian tradition, or basically Slavic paganism, because my people is actually Slavic. It is a culture. It is a ethnic cultural group of people. And that is a very vital point in this particular case, because it is something that really influences our Christian faith today. And well, to continue to go on with my background, I basically was raised with all of these customs that apparently appear as part of the Christianity we are following, but it is actually not. It is part of the pagan traditions that came before. But because our people never truly were able to, let go of all of that, the Christianizations of the Serbs, and the customs that we used to have before Christianity came, it's not something that my people ever truly gave up on. So there are plenty of these pagan traditions in the very Christian faith, and you can basically say that these are all modified pagan traditions to celebrate, Christian saints and Jesus and so on and so forth. But anyway, that is not something that I was aware of at first, and I basically followed that path alongside with my family, and it was basically traditions that I grew up with, and to me they were regular, and it all seemed normal to me. But to be brutally honest with you, I have never truly been that much religious about that at all, because there are very highly religious Christians who are going to church and lighting a candle, and doing all that stuff and praying regularly and all of this. And I was never truly I was never truly that kind of person, despite the fact that I truly respected those who did so, and I never truly saw myself doing that. And I can't really explain why, but that never truly um appealed to me at the time, if I can say it that way. But anyway, the thing is, this path that I have been following for so many years, the Serbian Orthodox path, is actually something that I followed all the way until, well, a little bit over 2 years ago. Today I'm actually 25 years old, and 2 years back I was, of course, 23. Now, what happened at that point? What actually made a difference at that point? Well, one of the things that happened back then is actually something that left a scar, uh, both in my heart but also in my soul. My mother back then actually became very ill, and she became ill from lung cancer. And it happened, well, basically 2 weeks after my 23rd birthday, and it happened 2 days after we traveled back home to Serbia to be with our family for New Year and for Christmas, because Christmas in Serbia is actually not celebrated the 24th, the 25th December, like most people do in the world. but it's actually done in the 7th January, which is by following the Julian calendar instead of the Gregorian calendar. But anyway, the thing is, at that point, my mother grew ill, and at first we didn't really know what happened with her. At first, me and my family thought that maybe it was some sort of a flu, or she catch some sort of a, I don't know, some kind of bacteria or a virus maybe. I don't know, but she grew more and more ill as time passed, and she actually grew rapidly ill. And the thing is, after 2 weeks, by the time we got home again, she was showing truly horrible symptoms. It was basically her becoming tired and fatigued just by taking few steps after walking around. Like going out into the bathroom and coming back. She was so fatigued, like if she had run a marathon. And that was not all of it. She could not breathe properly. Her lungs were hurting, and every time she tried to catch her breath, it was really hard for her, and she couldn't do that. And after that, we really needed to find out what was wrong, and that was actually a point where it was already too late, because by the time we actually found out, and she went to the hospital and got all these um, X-ray scans and so on and so forth, they discovered that she has had lung cancer, and it was so aggressive that she would not be able to get any kind of treatment. Even chemotherapy, if that's how you call it, actually. Not even chemotherapy would help her, because the way and how fast the cancer spread, she had grown so weak that it would instantly kill her if they tried to do that. But I refused to give up on my mother. Basically, the entire medical apartment already said and gave up from my mother, basically saying, if you have things to do, you better do it now, because your days are over. They literally said it that way, basically. And I couldn't accept that. I just couldn't. And I was trying to find an alternative. Maybe if the medical apartment have given up on my mother, maybe there was some other way. And I tried through herbalist medicine. Herbal medicine, plant medications, something that came from nature. And like I know from the past, that actually had proven to really work out miracles. But by the time I actually got my hands on some really great medications, and not something that actually has influence on your you know your body or anything, like altering your genes and all those vaccine things that they give you at hospitals. No, it's not that kind of thing. It's basically something that you make from nature's content, from plants, something that is from nature. And I knew that those things were her last hope. I really needed to try that, because the thing is, my mother actually saved both me and my grandparents, meaning her parents, from war. If she did not do what she had to do back then, when I was 3 years old, we would all be dead. We would all be killed by fanatical Islamists and people who were fanatics at the time. And yeah, well, I owed her. I needed to fight for her, and she was my mother. She's the woman who gave me birth. I couldn't just give up there. So yes, I did everything in my power, to be honest. I really tried to do everything I could, and I really did everything in my power. And in the end, it was not enough. By the time this herbal medication came, she was already at death's door. She could not stand out of her bed, and she she could not even go to the bathroom anymore. She could not do anything. She was immobile, folks. That's pretty terrible. I mean, it's a very scary thought, and I cannot even describe to you how horrible that is to watch. Basically, she's helpless, and I'm powerless to help her. And at that point, I was really praying to God. I was praying to God to ease my mother's suffering. But at the same time, and like my mother also wanted, she wanted to live. She wanted to continue living because she felt that she felt like it was not her time yet. She felt like she had more things to do, more things to see, and more things to accomplish. And she was also praying to God, basically saying, Almighty Lord in the heavens, please heed my prayers, please help me recover, please help me, please ease my pain and make me come back on my feet again. And she was really praying to God at that time. She was really calling upon um, her Lord Christ. She was really embracing her faith at that point, and she was really strong in it. I cannot deny. Anyone who would have seen my mother, and there are actually people beside me who have seen that, they can confirm she was truly, utterly strong in her faith at that time. But in the end, she died. She did not recover. She died in the hospital she basically fell in a coma. And yeah, well, I was there. I spent the entire night, that night when the folks from the hospital called me and said that my mother was basically at the final stage, and I better come there because I might not get another chance. And that moment, that was truly the most terrifying moment in my life. To be brutally honest, it was the most terrifying moment in my life. And the thing is, I feel like it's one of those critical and really important moments to say that my faith at that point was already beginning to lack a little bit, a lack of faith actually, because what actually happened afterwards, after my mother died, I felt so angry. I was questioning God's methods. I was thinking, how could God make my mother suffer so much during these 3 months that this cancer grew so fast and strongly inside her? And it was really something that terrified me, and I could not believe it. I mean, I believed in God so much beforehand. How could he make my mother suffer so much, especially since she did so much good in her life? She saved her own child from death, from war, even her own parents. We came and here's another thing. We actually came to Denmark when I was 3 years old. We came here as refugees, and we ended up in refugee camps where things were not exactly easy. But my mother, she really fought hard for us all, always putting my needs and my grandparents' needs before her own. And she had to learn both a new language, even after she was traumatized by war and everything. She remained strong for her family. And that's basically, I believe, and I truly believe, that the reason why she was capable of doing all that is because she was actually strong in her faith. She had the will and the strength to continue and to surpass all that. But when she died, and the way she died, it was truly something that angered me. I could not believe how much pain that she had to endure. And in the end, even at death's door, my mother tried to, you know, even in her coma, the very final stage, she was trying to stand up, stand up from the bed. She was all in a coma stage, folks. That's actually something if I did not see that, I basically could not believe it either. But that's the very moment where I saw how strong my mother was in her faith. But when she died, and the way she died, like I said, so much anger grew in me, and I was questioning the Lord on how could God want this? Why would he want this? And why make her suffer so much? And to be brutally honest with you, that was one of those key points when my faith was lacking. I was still clinging to the thing that I always believed in, and that is that everything has a reason, which means my mother's death is not a coincidence. There is a reason why she died, but at the point, and maybe that's because she's my mother, that she was the most important person to me in my life. And with her death and my grandparents dying pretty much long before that, I was left alone for myself. I had to live on on my own. But I mean, I knew that I would survive. I was ready for that. But the thing is, my mother was such a great person, and basically a woman who gave me life had to suffer so much before dying, and I could not understand that. So here's the thing. That is the point where my faith began to lack, despite the fact that I still cling to my always there is a reason point of view. I really started to question the will of Christ at that point, the will of God. And then after a short while, I don't remember exactly how much time passed afterwards, but it was actually pretty soon after that when I was introduced to some elements of Slavic paganism. Now, I had heard about that before because I had heard some of our customs are, oh, excuse me, some of our customs have been influenced by that, but I never truly investigated that in detail. But, well, since I was introduced to it by a friend I know, he basically showed me both some images of, some illustrations of Slavic deities, and afterwards I was digging a little bit further into it. Just, I was. This is basically the beginning of uh, my transcendence from being a Serbian Orthodox Christian to becoming a pagan. And here's how it works. Like I said, first I got these introductions, with illustrations and all that, and then afterwards I was searching a little bit more, digging a little bit more into it, just for the sake of theoretical knowledge, to see what's actually more to it, what actually inspired all of this, how did this came to be, and so on and so forth, because I really did not know much about it in particular at the time. Then later, when I was digging into, getting more information about this, I ended up in a group that is based in Belgrade. And this is at this point I actually made a Facebook page, a Facebook profile. And the reason why I did that in the first place, I was never truly a fan of Facebook. I found it like a very, deceitful page, where all sorts of organized things happen, and I didn't really like that. I knew that Facebook really was not a good page, and it was controlled, by some secret agents, and people are watching, and so on and so forth. And I was not really keen on making that, but some of my mother's friends made that decision, or so to speak, told me that it would be easier for us to stay in contact if I made that Facebook page. And you know what? I was thinking, I have nothing to lose at this point, because it's better if I can at least hold contact with them easier that way. Then whatever, I'll just make that. And with time, that actually grew to be a little bit more than I first realized. So anyway, folks, when I actually joined Facebook, and after being there for a while, and finding this group from Belgrade, which is a Serbian pagan group, this is where I actually got very further into this world of Slavic paganism. And they already had plenty of texts, sources that are uh, basically speaking about, or not speaking of, that are talking about all these pagan customs, and basically how they say the way of life of our pre-Christian ancestors. And at first, I didn't want to make any rational decisions. I wanted to know if this is some sort of, if this is something I can rely on, or if it's just all a fraud or whatever. I didn't want to blindly follow something just because it's presented as some sort of cultural heritage. So I didn't want to do that just out of nothingness. I didn't just embrace that. I needed to know from something or someone who has maybe more experience with it, or I don't know. Basically, I needed to make it more clear for myself whether this is something that is true or is it not. And after a while, after I was digging into it and having, well, basically discussions with other people who are already following that path, I saw that all of that which I was, celebrating, the holidays and all those customs in Serbian Orthodox Christianity, I actually found out that it's actually true that all those customs are actually having pagan roots, and all of those things, all of those saints that are being celebrated, and in the matter they are being celebrated, and in the fashion they are celebrated, all are let's basically say, a modification, some kind of a Christianized modification of these pagan deities and customs, and all which has pagan roots. That is something that I found out in this group, in this pagan group, and they already had plenty of sources, like I said. But I also digged aside from that, to see if there was something more to it, and there was plenty of other groups, and pretty much also pages and literature that were talking about all of this. Also literature that goes more than 100 years back, and even more so. So I was kind of inspired to kind of continue, because I was really getting intrigued, and I was trying to find out what is exactly the philosophy behind it. What is the worldview? What is it? What kind of spirituality is this? And to make a long story short in this aspect, because I could literally talk about this for several hours yet, in the end, I figured out that this pagan path is actually the worship of natural powers. So the deities that that are illustrated are actually deities that are resembling natural forces, natural energy, and natural, natural phenomena. So it's basically like saying, well, one of the deities and one of those that are really often mentioned in Slavic paganism is a thunder god, and one of the most, well, like they say, one of the most powerful gods in the Slavic pantheon is Perun, Perun, and this deity is illustrated as basically a a deity with a axe that possesses the power of thunder. And well, I found out that not only this deity has this kind of a natural uh, you know description and illustration to it, and this energy to it, but also a lot of other deities in this pantheon also seem to have uh, illustrations of being this natural force. Some gods who are uh, gods of fire, others who are gods of the sky and the ocean and the the wind, and all those natural phenomena you can basically think of. Nature is a very huge concept to be quite honest. You have woods, you have trees, you have grass, you have wind, you have sky, you have air, you have wind, you have water, you have earth, you have fire, you have so much. And many of these elements are linked to different deities. And in the end, after after a while, this is not something that happened just for a sudden. After a while, I actually believed that paganism, and especially our Slavic paganism, uh, is a religion based on natural force, and that it is a spirituality linked directly with nature. And this is something that I believed. After a while, and after having searched so much about it, and after talking with people who are already in that, who are already pursuing that path and everything, and they are actually really nice people. They are not actually, they were not even trying to deceive me or force me to believe that. They basically shared their knowledge with me. It's not something that they wanted to force upon me. And I can say already now, even now at this stage, these people are actually really nice people. They really are. They are good at heart. They are good at nature. That's something I even now cannot deny. But here's where it gets interesting. I stick to this path, to this Slavic pagan path for, I believe, 2 years more or less. And the thing is, a short while ago, one of my friends has basically seen the path that I had taken. He has watched, I believe he has watched me for a little while, and maybe had hoped that I would figure it out myself, but well, maybe with time I would have, but in any case, he contacted me. And the friend that I'm speaking of is actually a longtime friend that I know for many years now, actually. And he lives in Vienna, and he's a fellow, well, he's a fellow kinsman. He's also from Serbia, so we know each other pretty well, and he's a very dear friend to me, actually. And the reason why he turned to me in the first place is actually because I'm also very dear to him. And when he turned to me, he basically told me that I should not continue on that path any longer, because I was deceiving myself, and I was being deceived with false information. And of course, hearing that from him, I've been told this from others who claimed the same thing, but they could not really prove anything with that statement, because they really didn't give me any kind of evidence that I was wrong in pursuing this path. They were only condemning me, saying, you know what, you are a heretic, you are pursuing, all false gods, you are evil, you are corrupted, and blah 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 blah. That kind of answer doesn't really help me, because those who say that basically sound like they are brainwashed themselves. Because if those Christians that try to convince me otherwise, they themselves do not really live up to their standards as noble Christians as they would claim to be, because they were turning to me in a very aggressive manner, and that was not really a convincing way to make me consider otherwise. And so I did not really take that kind of response to heart, and trying to basically, I was trying to see their point, but I couldn't. They didn't give me any evidence. They were only condemning me for the path I've taken, and that really didn't help. But my friend, he did not do that. He basically told me at first that I was deceiving myself, but then, because I am dear to him, he actually proved it. And the way he proved it is through symbolism. The symbols that are used in this pagan faith, this Slavic pagan faith that I have been pursuing alongside these other people that I have been in contact with for, well, these 2 years or so. And the thing is, my friend, he basically told me that those symbols are all part of, and this is important, this is very, very important that I'm going to say now. He said all those symbols are part of Saturn symbolism. I'm going to say it again. Saturn symbolism. And Saturn symbolism is basically something that is linked to the planet we all know as Saturn. Now this, at a glance, may seem a little bit off people's, comprehension. They will probably not immediately understand how this has anything to do with this, but it actually has, because Saturn symbolism goes back all the way to the ancient times, from Babylon, which basically at the time were worshipping all sorts of different stars and planets, worshipping the heavenly glow, as you would say. And ultimately, Saturn has this cloud pattern on its north pole, which has a consistent formation of a hexagon. And a hexagon is basically an occult, what you could say, an occult symbol. And the reason why he told me that I should search on Saturn symbolism is because immediately after I did that, I immediately spotted every single thing. If not everything, basically almost all the symbols that I knew from the pagan world. All of them are linked directly to Saturn symbolism. And Saturn symbolism is actually Satan symbolism, Satanic symbolism. And that was actually not something that I realized at first. But when he told me that, and I knew immediately that it is something I need to investigate, because he's a very dear friend to me, and he would not lie about this stuff. He would definitely not lie about this stuff. And I checked that. And besides this, that is actually the major eye-opener for me. And one of the other YouTubers here that I would like to mention here right now is a guy called White Rabbit, which is basically a truther who spreads truth about, hidden secrets that, the public does not really know about. But at the same time, he also exposes evil. And the way he exposes evil is by exposing the New World Order gang's occultist secrets and plans and manipulations and symbolism, which ultimately is creating this New World Order that are deceiving us into seeing things their way and, well, basically accepting their world, their satanic world, the world of the Antichrist, as you would have it. And, well, at first, this is something that when I first realized this, I was truly shocked. I mean, his words, my friend's words, when he first told me this, he made me think twice. He made me doubt myself because, I was a little bit skeptic, but he did pike my mind. He truly did. He made me think about what I believed in, and at the same time, what I thought I knew. But, I had to know. I had to know because he would not say that without a reason. And then when I searched about it, like I said, I was really surprised, if not shocked, by what I found out. But at the same time, I'm also grateful to him for telling me this, because he was right. He really was. He was right about everything he said to me when he contacted me. You see, we had a Skype call, and we had a chat for several hours. I don't know, it was actually 5 or 6 hours. We usually have long conversations, and he is a very wise guy, and he has a very unique way of thinking and seeing things that many people do not. And basically, this new world order, it is something that I am already familiar with for a very long time. This is not something that's new to me. But this religious aspect, these hidden secrets, and especially the symbology, that's something that actually surprised me, because I admit that is something that I was not completely aware of. And he made me aware of it. He made me aware of it. And because of him, when I searched about all these symbologies and pagan symbols, and basically ultimately it comes down to all the major known symbols in the world, and all the world's religions ultimately come down to Saturn symbolism, because this occult is trying to make a one world religion, and they are doing it in a fashion that people don't realize it. They think that all these religions are separate from each other. They believe that all these symbols that each of these branches are using, that they are separate from each other and that they are not linked. But when you actually link them to Saturn, they all correspond with each other. They all interact. They all work together in that fashion. They really do. And at first, yeah, there were actually some people who were claiming this, but I did not believe them because they couldn't prove it to me. However, then I watched a video by the guy I mentioned before, White Rabbit, which I must say is truly an amazing guy who has made fantastically great videos. And I would recommend you visit that guy, because, visit his channel and watch all of his videos. I can literally say I have watched all of his videos, and they have all helped me realize certain things. And another video that my friend actually suggested from White Rabbit's page Not only did he recommend me to visit his page, but also to watch the video called what's it called? Yeah, The Greatest Lie Ever Told, which is based on evolution being scientific fact, which is absolute nonsense. It is not scientific fact. It is a belief that has deceived the world so strong and so strongly to believe in it that it has ultimately become, a false fact, which all people today, or not all people, but a vast majority of people who believe in evolution being a fact, actually follow that example. And that is a religion. Evolution is actually a religion. And those who believe it follow it unquestioning and fully devotedly. Now, when I watched those videos, those were really eye-opening to me. And I was starting to realize certain things, that everything that I have read in these 2 years about Slavic paganism and, other paganisms in general, they are absolutely worthless, to be fully honestly with you. They are absolutely worthless. And it's sad on a certain level, because, I believe that this was true, but it really isn't. It really is not. And both my friend has proven that to me, and White Rabbit's videos, where he basically explains all of this in really accurate and precise details, and showing all these proofs in the background. His videos is basically where he talks about all of these things, and then basically, show this in the background for people who may be a little bit troubled understanding him. But I could understand him every single bit. And I must say, despite everything that I have read, and despite all the, well, knowledge, so to speak, that I had before, it's useless. I cannot argue with him, because basically I can't use those arguments as valid arguments. I cannot use that. And what actually surprised me later on, then I watched the video called The Genesis Theory, which also comes under part 1, which I believe White Rabbit is going to expand a little bit more on. But that video is about 3 hours long, and it is basically centered around evolutionists versus creationists. So the Genesis theory is basically about how the world came to be. Now, evolutionists would say in the beginning there was nothing, whereas the creationists would say, and this is following the Bible, it is in the beginning God created the heavens and earth. It is basically saying that God is the one who created everything. He created earth, he created everything we see around us today. He created he even created time and space and the stars, and everything that we know and see today. It is all God's creation. And then people usually say, well, what came before that? Well, it's actually a little bit of an ironic question, because if God created time, well, you can't really ask what came before that, because no time, then there is not anything before that. It's all there. God created. It's something that no one can prove. And evolutionists who say that the world is, millions and millions and millions and who knows how many billions and millions of years old, they are sticking to all these evolution theories and all these evolution, basically deceptive theories that have deceived the world so much with so many false evidence, so many invented evidence, so-called evidence, that people have become blind. And it is true. And it really is true, because after having watched all of this, I went on and researched a little bit about it myself. And I saw I saw the things that White Rabbit was talking about. And you know, both him and what's his name? I'm sorry if I'm saying the gentleman's name wrong, but Dr. Holvin, yeah, I believe that's his name. He's basically a creationist who is who's very loyal to the Bible, so to speak. You know, the Genesis of the Bible. You know, and the thing is, here is here's where I realized all of this, and that's basically where I finally admitted to myself that this is the truth. It really is. All these gods that I came to believe in before, they are not real, and they are not what even those people who shared their knowledge with me, they are not that which they believe them to be. They too are deceived, and I cannot condemn these people for, I can't say that they deceived me, because they too are deceived. And yes, this may be somehow terrible to say, and I may sound like a hypocrite right now for saying all this. And like, they would probably say that I'm, jumping from one seat to another, as we would say it in Serbian, and I understand that, guys. I understand if you feel pissed with me, and if you feel like I'm being indecisive, and I get that, and I would probably feel that way too if I did not know what I know right now. But you need to understand that I really feel, and I have really realized, that this discovery that I've just found out, both through my friend opening my eyes and White Rabbit as well, but also all the evidence that has further led me to discovering the truth after having watched all of these things, I really have to tell you, it is the undeniable truth. Lord Jesus Christ is the truth. He is the only real truth, the one true God, the one Almighty Father, the creator of the world, the universe as we know it. Well, basically the world we live in today is man-made. Well, the reality we live in right now, this prison that we live in, this is actually man's creation. But what I want to say is, God is the all creator. He is the creator of everything, not some big bangs, not some Darwinist theories where where humans evolved from monkeys and from apes and so on, or reptiles, and who knows what all kinds of nonsense theories that we have heard and witnessed and hear other people say and believe in. And even more so, there is actually one thing where they say that uh, that we as humans today, Homo sapiens, came to be from Neanderthals. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the specific and professional term is for Neanderthals, but that is something that White Rabbit has actually mentioned. Now, I can't actually remember the name for it, so apologies for that. But it would actually seem that if we actually follow the evolution theory, we are right now in the process of losing evolved genes, so to speak, because if we evolved from the Neanderthals, then we are actually de-evolving right now. Because the Neanderthals are proven to be both larger than us, stronger than us, better built than us, and even clever than us. You know, more smart. They had bigger brains. They had better. They had more brain capacity. You know, they had better ways of thinking and more intellectual way of thinking than we are today. So we would actually be in a phase of devolving rather than evolving. So, you know, all these things that people are saying from about the evolution theory and, you know, it being scientific fact, it is not. And White Rabbit is fully correct when he says it is a belief. It is not scientific fact. And despite the fact that I already knew some of those things before, you know, for a very long time, like I never ever accepted Darwin as a reliable person. I knew from a very long time, you know, already back in high school when we first started to have him in our biology class. I knew he was a fraud. I instantly saw that. But the thing is, if I was to pass my biology class, I really had to, you know, suck up all this, yeah, sorry for my language, to suck up all of this bullshit. And then when I had to write the assignment, I had to write as much as bullshit I could in order to pass the class. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't pass it. And that's the problem. They teach us in school all sort of things that are just part of this NBO, this New World Order gang's plans, and you know what they want you to think, you know, to make you think the way they want you to. You know, you are being brainwashed both in school. I mean, there's so much falsification even in school teachings, and so much most falsifications on the media. You know, when you turn on the television, you are basically turning on uh, the NBO propaganda box, so to speak. So there you have it, folks. Basically, what I have found out is this is something that truly has opened my mind and my eyes to certain things, and I have come to realize Jesus Christ is the one and true God. He is the one and true, real Lord, All Father, and Savior of the humans. He is the one and true Lord, not these other gods, not these other deities, because their real thing is, and this is the horrible truth in it all. And I'm going to make this as the final conclusion before I end this video. All these deities that have been worshipped are actually fallen angels. They are basically those who are being cast out from heaven. It is those who have tried to be, you know, like Satan. They have tried to be godlike. You know, these images of gods and so on and so forth, they are actually just silhouettes. Basically, you could call them camouflages to what lies beneath. And what lies beneath are fallen angels. These gods that pagans are worshipping, and probably many of them are actually decent and good people, but they are being deceived. They, instead of actually worshipping this some kind of natural energy and natural force and natural divinity, it is actually fallen angels that they are being led to believe in and worship. And it's the same thing even in Christianity. You know, all these symbolisms, even the cross, which is an X, it represents Saturn, which represents Lucifer. And Lucifer, that's basically another name for Satan. And when you worship, but when you idolize a cross, you are actually idolizing Saturn, meaning you are idolizing Lucifer. Now the thing is, if your intentions are to know God, and you pursue and you follow in the steps of Jesus Christ, It really doesn't matter, but it is actually vital for, well, it's a nice thing to know that this actually is not a good idea. It's not good to idolize anything. It is very important to, the key element of knowing God is that God does not need symbols. If there is any kind of symbol out there that represents God, it's basically all of his creations. Mountains, the plains, the forests, me, you, my family, your family, my brother, your brother, etc. I mean, basically all of this, all that you can find outside, just by taking a step outside your front door and looking out, there's your symbol of God. It's not really a symbol of God, but if you are seeking for one, there you have it. And the thing is, God does not need symbols, but Satan does. And all these symbols that are being used, it doesn't matter if it's from Christianity or Islam or, pagan beliefs or the Jewish beliefs, even the Jewish so-called David Star. It's actually not David Star, because according to the Bible, he was never instructed to make such a symbol. It is actually the seal of King Solomon. And that is another story which you can actually find on White Rabbit's page by watching his video about Saturn symbolism. But anyway, folks, I just want to tell you that the reason why I have become a born-again Christian, it is because when I realized this, and I finally had this enlightened, eye-opening moment, I felt both regretful for having turned Jesus Christ from me, pushing him away from me when I walked down this pagan path. And it's really a hard feeling to, it's something that's really hard to comprehend. I feel both regretful, but at the same time I feel grateful for finally realizing the errors of my ways. And then at that moment, when I was feeling regret, and I was asking the Lord for forgiveness, and for being led astray, and I'm not even condemning the people that I spent time with and who shared their experience with me with following all these pagan paths, because they too are they too are being deceived. And I know this, like I said, this sounds so, it sounds like I'm being a hypocrite, but folks, I really need to tell you this. I need to say it, and because of the errors of my ways, I also feel like obligated to say this, because despite the fact that people may be, may condemn me for doing this, and may even hate me in the end, I don't blame you, and I can't even promise that I wouldn't feel the same way if I was in your shoes after hearing this, but it's just that I have simply realized it, and I cannot argue against the truth. I really cannot. And the one necessity that I feel right now is to read the Bible. I feel the need to it. And it's not because that I feel fear. It's not that. It's not even because that I need to, in sense of that I have to, but because I want to. I want to know it. I want to know Jesus Christ now. I want to know what God has said. And I really cannot neglect it. I really can't. And maybe someday when you and I really pray, and I will pray for you to say when you realize it, not if, but when you realize it, because folks, many of you who are going to hear this, you are actually very dear to me. Some of you I actually know in person, and I would really love not to only know you in this life, but also in the next one. And when I say the next one, it is in the realm of heaven, the realm of God, by the side of our Lord Jesus Christ. And the thing is, people, we need to prove ourselves in order to get there. We must not let our souls and ourselves be deceived anymore by this new world order, who are worshipping all of these symbolisms and worshipping these these fallen angels. And we must not allow ourselves to be pawns of their game. These agents that the fallen angels have on earth right now, those who are actually pushing this new world order forward, they must not be allowed to take us with them. We must not follow their game. We must embrace the truth. We must, and besides embracing the truth, we must also expose their evil. We need to, because people are being so easily deceived today. Many are being brainwashed, and they are not even thinking. And we need to make these people wake up, because if we don't, we are going to become pawns and slaves and servants of the Antichrist. We are becoming servants of the Masonry, the Freemasonry. We are becoming slaves of Satan. We are becoming slaves of the fallen angels. And we are worshipping them like small pet slaves that they can use as they please. We must not allow ourselves to become tools. And we need to wake others up. It is our duty. God calls upon us to expose all this. The truth lies in the Bible, people. It lies in the Bible. It's all written there. God has spoken. He has revealed everything to us. He has even foreseen things before it happened. And why has he done that? Because people question his authority. People questioned his divine power, and he proved that. And the reason why all of this happened is not because God planned it to happen. It is because men are corrupted. We have allowed these fallen angels to deceive us and basically make us pawns of their game. And this world is actually very much influenced by Satan's agents and his fallen angels, and by him himself, because Satan desperately wants to be God. He really wants to be God. And we must not let that happen, because if we follow all these symbolisms, if we allow ourselves to fall for his games and manipulations and brainwashings, we will end up becoming his pawns. And in the end, willing or not, we will actually be seeing things their way. We will actually be embracing the New World Order and the will of Antichrist, whether we want to or not, and whether we would realize it or not. We would actually embrace it. And we would live a very sinful life. And the thing is, in the end, the only ones who would be fearing anything is those who are following in the steps of Satan. Because the Antichrist wants to be God without God, basically skipping God, and gene manipulating ourselves, prolonging life and creating life. Everything that God has done, Antichrist wants for himself, basically mocking God and becoming God like himself. And in the end, seek more immortality, which is completely and utterly against God's wishes. And here's the thing, folks. The only thing that we will be fearing in the end, and the most terrifying fear we would have, is the fear of death. But there is one thing, and the big and large difference between us, the followers of Christ, and the followers of Antichrist is we have no reason to fear anything, because we simply need to follow in and prove ourselves to our Lord that we are pure. We are born with a pure soul. Our soul is pure. And if we do not allow ourselves to be corrupted by it, we will follow in the steps of Jesus. And we will not need to fear anything. Many claim that we fear God, but we do not fear God. Many claim that we love God and respect God out of fear, but it's not true. That is something that I used to believe when I was following my pagan path, but it's not true. In actual fact, our God is the most forgiving God of all. Basically saying all of those fallen angels, Satan and all they are not forgiving. They want to use you. There is no forgiveness in that. If you follow in their footsteps, you will be suffering their games and their manipulations of you for eternity. That's basically hell for you right there. But God does not want that for you. And you are not a slave of God. You are following his footsteps, but the reason why you are doing that is because God will save you when you escape this prison. The reason why we are here right now is because of the original sin. When Adam and Eve took a bite of the forbidden fruit. Well, basically we are all trapped in that sin right now, because this world we are living in right now, this is basically like a prison. And in order for us to escape this prison, we need to break through it. And the way we are going to do that is by following in Jesus' footsteps. Because when Jesus died on the cross, he escaped the prison. And that has actually a very huge significance. Jesus dying on the cross actually has more importance than people realize, even those who are actually devoted Christians. And well, basically that's actually a long story, and I do not want to prolong that much further now. But I want to tell you folks, I feel basically that Jesus has stepped into my life. And I feel utterly blessed right now. I feel enlightened. I feel delighted. And I feel happy. I feel happy. Despite the fact that I have made so much error. I have committed so much faults by turning away from Christ's, from Jesus Christ in the first place, and, walking down a dark path. I have asked for forgiveness. I have kneeled down, I have not kneeled down before any symbols. I have kneeled down and prayed to the Lord in order, I have asked for forgiveness, and I believe that God is enough forgiving, to give me a second chance. Because, in the end, we are not perfect. We are only human beings. We are not God. Jesus was God. He is the most pure soul of them all. And he is a forgiving God. He forgives so much. But you must never, you need to realize that God wants the best for you. He's like a parent. It's like when a father says, when a father says to his child, my boy, you cannot go out and play on the street, football on the street. He does not say that because he wants to limit your capabilities. He says that to protect you, because he knows that if you go out there, you might be hit by a car. And when you take that as an example, today, this world we live in has basically been hit by thousands of cars. because the Illuminati, the illumined ones, the Satanists, the main Satanists, the Masons, all of them, the agents of the fallen angels, they are all corrupting this world, and they are doing that through the media and movies and Hollywood and musicals and everything. And I know that some people will say that this is nonsense. They don't even believe in the illumined ones. And well, to those who do believe that, I need to tell you that you need to wake up, because like it or not, it is actually a reality that we live in today. And the sooner we get people to wake up, the faster we can actually break free of these chains that these antichrist agents have put on this world. The thing is, we need to. It is our obligation, and we need to do it. God calls upon us to destroy evil and expose it, to expose evil, and in the end, if we expose it and people realize this, they will turn against the Illuminati. And it's not in sense of revolution. That's not what this is about. It is in sense of mind. Because once your mind has been broken free from all this brainwashing, then we are free from the Illuminati. They cannot control us, they cannot influence us, they cannot deceive us, and then that is the ultimate defeat against evil. Because at that point, they lose their influence, they lose their power, and they lose the war, the spiritual war we are in today. So there you go, folks. That is why I have become a born-again Christian. Jesus Christ has blessed me. I feel it, and I feel reborn. My spirit has been reborn, and I shall forever, as long as I draw breath, remain loyal and devoted to the one true Lord, our Lord and Father Almighty, Jesus Christ. Thank you for listening to me, folks. I hope it was helpful, and to my friends who have probably been listening so far, I don't know what you think of me right now after hearing me out, but no matter what, I still love you as my fellow brothers and sisters, and no matter what path you are taking, I will hope to see you again, not only in this life, but also by the Lord's side. Thank you all, and God bless you all. Amen.